And we are live. Welcome one, welcome all to JWC Livestream. That's Joe's Writers Club live stream with Ricky and Tom. I'm Ricky, and that's
Tom.
Tom.
Hey.
That's Tom up there. Tom, how you doing?
Excellent.
I'm glad to hear that.
Keeping up the creativity.
Yeah. We're about to do the check-in and do the dipsticks, see where we've all been this week creatively. This show is the story at a glance show, but we're kind of gonna do a read, break something up. You know, it goes back and forth here. There's sort of a flow, and in this particular case, Tom's got something he wants to read, to lay on us. It sounds cool. So we're going to check it out. But first, Tom, how's your creativity been, man?
Very good. I finished a Pencrum story, The Women of Aton, the society women and their killer zombie. So far, so good. It was, had to work on the ending, but I decided to stop working on it and just let it gel for a while. And I started a new story, Village of the Dead. It's Pencrum's coming on, taking a much needed break after his adventure on Bray Road with the devil demons.
Bray Road
from the Deadly Mile. He's basically based on the Beast of Bray Road. And he had a rough time there. He had lost a couple friends, and his mom decided to take him on a break to this little tiny town in West Virginia it's known for its healing waters and hot springs and wonderful food. And she takes Amos and his fiancee Allison, who's a witch, with them, and they're driving along, and in the middle of the night they want to get there when it opens, and they don't see, as they're approaching, they don't see any lights lit in the town at all. And then they're going slow, they see a body in the middle of the road near the front gate. So that's kind of where I stopped for the day. So something's going on.
Sounds great. I know whenever there's a Pencrum getting written, there's always going to be some great stuff to follow. So I'm glad to hear. Keep us posted on that, Tom.
Yeah. The next one I'm going to do the head of the North American United Witches of America comes to see Pencrum because something is going on in her town, which is on the coast, the Atlantic coast of South Carolina, which is fog has descended on the town and it's not gone away, and people are dying and disappearing. Mm-hmm. So she said, "Could you come help?" So that's sort of witches and a Cyclops story. So could be interesting. I'm hoping.
Sounds like fun. Sounds like a lot of fun.
I think I might take the Cyclops stories and put them in a slim volume, or group them together when I put them in paperback. So we'll see.
Please do, man. The more the merrier. Your shorts are always a treat. So I have been working on what is called the Zophatheth Bridge novel. Got these 7 Afternity novels I started writing back in 2011 through 2012, 2013. They were in different shapes, different formats, but I broke them up into 7 volumes, and I'm writing a narrative B that I'm going to be weaving in through them all because of Book of Masroth. Book of Masroth has some characters that the muse came up. It was necessary for those characters, for other characters, more important characters, to be fleshed out. But the characters themselves, one of them was one that I came up with from all the way back in 1994. This guy Saber, and he's evolved over the years, and we're sort of getting a latter-day Saber because he and his brother are crystalline constructs. They're metanetic constructs. Think a Terminator, but 50 times harder than Diamond, the skeleton. and the strength is like off the chart. Like we're talking about like Marvel superhero approaching DC superhero level of strength from these things. And they're deathless. They go on and on for thousands of years. So we're picking up on these two brothers haven't seen each other for 10,000 years. And then they run into each other. And as usual, they're arguing. It's like no different from the last time they've not changed one bit. So it's like these two brothers are going to be going through this narrative for books, and it's got a for like 7 books. It's going to be hopefully 700,000 words when it's done. That's not including Masroth. And I've been talking about redoing these books ever since I met you, pretty much, because I didn't have a handle on it. I didn't really know what to do. But the muse struck like 2 months ago. The muse was like, now's the time. Up. So now I'm writing, and I'm having a blast. Like it's like I'm writing Book of Maseroth all over again. Like how you must feel when you write a Pankram or when you wrote Emily. It must be a similar impact of like bliss, creative bliss.
Right.
So I'm stoked, man. It sounds like we're both doing good. We're having a lot of fun. And it's a good thing too, because the world is a maelstrom right now. So the secondary world is much better. So Tom, moving right along now, like Tarzan swinging from tree to tree. What do you have to read today? You have a read for us, right?
Yeah, I have a fun little story that I came up with just tooling around with thinking about time travel one day. I said, I'd like to do a fun time travel story.
Sure.
So I came up with this one. Just the title popped in my head, and the story was very, very easy to write. It's Uncle Roger and the Really Dumb Interdimensional Spies. So,
right on.
So what have you've got a what? Pete asked, shaking his head. A time machine, said Tanya. A real one? Oh yeah, we've been back to my last birthday party lots and lots of other times. Pete smiled. That last birthday when you fell in the pool with your cake and ice cream? Tanya's eyes lit up. That's what I forgot about that party. She began to hurry down the street toward her house. Pete shielded his eyes from the early morning sun. Hey, where you going? Got to fix something. Pete shrugged and followed her home. She walked into the backyard and into her grandfather's, should be uncle, her uncle's garden shed. As he watched, the shed shimmered for a few seconds. Then it disappeared. Pete sat down hard on the patio. He wondered whether he could be sleeping. The pain in his rear from the stones he sat on told him he was wide awake. The worms swirled around the patio in the backyard, picking up all the brown leaves. They spun into a tight vortex above the spot where the shed had been. With a pop, the shed returned. Steam poured off the roof, and icicles hung from the 2 satellite dishes perched on the top. The door opened, and Tanya stepped out. Hey, Pete, she said. Uncle Roger stepped out of the shed with what looked like a portable video game unit. He wore what he always wore, a bright Hawaiian shirt, thick leather work boots, and a gray denim pants with a million pockets. Pete liked him, even if he never combed his fuzzy hair. Well, young Peter, said Roger, you've come at an opportune time. Time for what? Something very important, lunch. What's on the agenda today, Tanya? Subs, tuna subs, from Cardinal Subs. Great choice, be right back. Roger walked backward into the shed and slid the door closed. More shimmering, and the small building disappeared again. Cardinal Subs has been gone since we were in kindergarten, said Peter. Yeah, I know, said Tanya. You still like yours with extra mayo? Oh, sure. Tanya smiled, coming right up. The vortex of leaves repeated itself, and soon Roger stood in front of him. Let's go into the house, he said. Peter has a lot of questions. Better to give him the answers with a tall glass of milk. The sandwiches were great, as they had always were, from Cardinal Subs. Pete remembered the excellent sesame-strewn bread that Cardinal had used to be known for. Uncle Roger also had a dark, rich chocolate cake he said came from an old bakery in 1888 London. The cake had a flavor Pete could not place, but he had no complaints. So you're wondering how I was able to get these subs, am I right? Well, yeah, said Pete. Tanya said you have a time machine. She did, eh? Roger said, looking at should be his niece. Tanya shrugged. He's my best friend. How could I not tell him? By not telling him, said Roger. Well, it's done, and there's no one doing it. You could go back in time and stop her from telling me, said Pete. Now that's an idea, said Roger. He looked at Pete. How'd you like to disappear off the face of the earth? I can do that, you know. Pete gulped. Really? No, that would be wrong. I'd upset the space-time continuity or whatever it is. How's the cake? Great. Where did you say it's from? Doyle's Bakery on Winchester Place in London. Burned down in 1888. Ah, then this is really old then. Nope, baked this morning. I picked it up and rushed back here just for you, Pete. Well, thanks. Can I see this time machine? Thought you'd never ask, said Roger. Come finish up and we'll go look. Pete ate and wiped his mouth as Roger and Tanya poked around the house. Soon a small pile of stuff sat in front of Pete. She saw some boxes of chocolate bars, some books, and 2 boxes of light bulbs. Pete got to his feet and Uncle Roger thrust a box in his arms. Hold on to this and follow us. Uncle Roger and Tanya walked out of the house, followed by Pete. They made their way to the garden shed. Pete took a long look at the place as he walked in. In addition to 2 dishes on the roof, a large gyroscope hung from each corner of the top. They went into the shed. Pete gasped. The place looked cleaner than when it had been erected. 3 lounge chairs sat in one corner. Against the far wall were 6 large microwave ovens, a refrigerator, and another bunch of gyroscopes. A pile of plastic storage containers sat stacked by the door. In the center of the shed sat an old console television, made of wood. It was as big as an oven. A bunch of coat hangers, all twisted together, hung above the television set. Wow, said Pete. Take a seat, said Uncle Roger, as he closed and locked the door. What the heck is this stuff? Well, this stuff is how we travel through time. The gyroscopes and the satellite dishes gather the time energy and the vernal vibrations of the earth. Whatever you say there, Roger, said Pete. That all means nothing to me. He knelt by the old television. Pete had a fascination with pre-internet technology. The big dials made him smile. He turned the top dial from 3 to 6. Smiling, he stood and looked down at the device. Don't touch anything, said Uncle Roger. I won't, said Pete. I was just looking at the television. This belongs in the museum. You think so? Yeah, don't you? Nope. This television is not old enough to be an antique, and it's not anything outstanding as far as innovation or technology. No? No, nah. Roger ran his hand along the smooth surface. This was in my living room for 20 years. When I came up with the idea for my time machine, this fit my design perfectly. It's still a cool TV. Oh, yes, it is. Roger returned to fiddling with his equipment. Any more questions before we leave? Where are we going? I thought I'd leave that to you, said Roger, his white hair moving slightly in the breeze from the fan on top of the microwaves. Really, Pete smiled. I wanted to ask you first how you got that cake from London when it's thousands of miles from here. Roger smiled and looked at Tanya. You're right, Tanya. He is inquisitive. Smart, too, by the way he carries himself. Perfect for our plans. Whoa, what plans? Are you going to rob a bank or something? Is that what you want to do, Pete? No. But what kind of plans do you have in mind? Tanya and I have been very busy lately with our machine, began Uncle Roger. But with every change we make to the thing, it takes more work. You follow me so far? Yeah, I do. We realized yesterday that when we were at Tanya's party, that we could use another pair of hands around here. So Tanya suggested we talk to you. How about it? How'd you like to join the team? Pete sat down in one of the lounge chairs. The soft cushions embraced him and he felt like taking a nap. He looked at Tanya. Is it dangerous? Hasn't been so far, said Tanya. Pete nodded his head and smiled. Yeah, I want to help. Good, said Roger. Can you lift that box over there? Sure. Pete got off the chair and went to the box. He knelt down and picked it up. This is empty. Yes, and you passed the test. Test? My only criteria is for you to do what I ask when I ask. No questions, no back talk. He smiled at Pete. Can you put the box down now, gently? Pete smiled and put the box down. You know, I'd really got to go to Disneyland for the day. Can you do that? Oh, sure. When do you want to go? How about now? Tanya laughed. No, silly. What year do you want to visit the park? I'd like to go the first week it opened. The road melted and nothing worked. Did the Pirates of the Caribbean eat the tourists? No, silly. Maybe we can go after the folks at Disney had fixed everything. Maybe, said Roger. Let's leave it to Pete. Disneyland would be nice, said Pete, but maybe we could try somewhere that's changed over the years, a lot. You want proof that we've gone back in time, right? Said Roger. Well, yeah, not that I don't believe you or anything. Fair enough. How about going to the top of the World Trade Center on September 9th, 2001? Pete shook his head. No, I lost an uncle in 9/11. I don't need a reminder. I've got it. How about visiting Mount St. Helens a week or so before it blew its top in 1980? That does sound altogether different today. It does look altogether different today than it did before the eruption, said Roger. All right. When did the volcano erupt? The big eruption was May 18th, 1980, said Pete. You know your stuff, Pete, said Roger. How about we go on May 7th? That won't do, said Pete. Oh, yeah. A group of volcanic explosions and pyroclastic flows began on March 27th. It wouldn't be safe after that date. Good point. Let's make it March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Roger began to make adjustments to his instruments and gyroscopes. Just a few more questions, began Pete. Shoot, said Uncle Roger. He sat down on the central lounge chair. Okay, 1. How did you get the cake in London when London is thousands of miles away? We discovered if we compensated for the rotation of the Earth, we could travel across the globe instead of just through time. The voice was Tanya's. Pete looked over at her as she spun the dials on the massive stereo system. The setup created a small room in the corner of the shed near the door. You discovered? Asked Pete. Surprised? Asked Roger. Well, yeah, I thought you were the inventor. It's more of a collaborative effort, said Roger. We both came up with the idea one weekend and started planning it out in my shop. By ourselves, we wouldn't have been able to do anything. That's weird, said Pete. Not really. Like minds produce like results. Are your parents smart too? Uncle Roger laughed. Can you imagine your dad thinking of something like this? Tanya smirked. No, not a chance. He wouldn't want to do anything like this. He hates tools. My mom wouldn't really like all of this. Roger smiled. We'll have to invite her to come along sometime in the future. I see, said Pete. Okay, then, what are the microwaves for? They're for keeping track of time, said Roger. As long as they all keep the same time, we've crossed the time streams without knocking anything out of place. How much danger is in doing that? We don't know, said Tanya, and we don't want to find out. Well, if there are no more questions, we can go. Wow, said Pete, so soon? We don't have all day, said Roger. We have to be done before Tanya's parents get home from work, and you two have homework to do. He looked at the watch on his wrist. We have about 6 hours, plenty of time for a quick look around. One thing, though. Yeah, all of our technology and money has to go in here. Roger produced a heavy gray box from next to his chair. We can't bring anything from now back to then, understand? Sure. How about our clothes? We'll be among tourists, said Tanya. As long as we don't make a scene, no one will give us a second look. Wow, you guys thought of everything, said Pete as he stripped off his Jurassic Park t-shirt. Have you got something I can wear? Fortunately, we have a lot of clothes from 30 to 40 years ago. There's some shirts in a tub with a green top. Thanks. Pete found a St. Louis Cardinal shirt and slipped it on. Now, if we're all ready, it's time to get into position. Ready, said Pete. Where do you need me? In that chair, said Tanya, pointed to the one closest to the stereo. That's it? You're expecting to take off like we're going to the moon, asked Tanya. Yeah, something like that. Tanya laughed. It's pretty dull. No noise, no sound. All of a sudden, we're there. Okay, sounds good to me. All right, I'm going to set the timer, said Roger. We'll have 30 seconds to get comfortable. Just don't try to stand up after the countdown starts. Okay. Good, let's go. Roger pushed the big red button on the stereo. All the gyroscopes began to spin. The tangle of coat hangers sparked at the tips of the wires. The television lit up, showing the face of Samuel Conover, the local weatherman. The image went dark. Just as the counter went to 5 seconds, a gray-green flash filled the shed. Pete looked over at Roger. His face crossed with worry. The shed dropped into the past with a jolt. All of the ovens beeped. The stereo began to play classical music, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Something's wrong, said Tanya, getting up from her chair. That's part 1. So.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, that was a real delightful story. And the time travel aspect, I mean, you set it up very, very quick, but I love the way it was. Like, there's, I mean, your dialogue's always great. The dialogue was a great narrative driver, moving stuff along. And there's like all this paradoxical commentary about chocolate cakes and where we're going to go. Then you also have like a little bit of industrial terminology, like talking about how it happens, who came up with it. It turns out it's a collaboration, and they have all this sprung up adventure. Oh yeah, we're going to use a time machine, and they're like the intelligent ones seem to be very, very historically literate, which informs like, oh, we don't want to go and die somewhere like Mount St. Helens at the wrong time. And it's like all that stuff shows the calculation of possibility. You also made it so that they can travel through space because of the Earth wobble. You said you have this, you're gathering the time travel energy, which is probably like chronotron tachyon particles if we're going to use Star Trek logic. I mean, I don't know what it is. It could be the world you're writing in, the paradigm you're writing in has a special particle that you dial into, and it's almost like embedded. But then you move into, you know, all the concepts leading to a possibility of like, we could go anywhere. We could see anything. And that sets it up. That to me, that's a really genius stroke of tension, because it sets it up where like any possibility exists. So now the reader is like pulled in, and it also makes it so the reader is questioning like, well, if I had a time machine, where would I go? And that's a nice little imagination, a tour of imagination, and perhaps even inspiration. So that's a great tale, Tom. Well done.
You also notice the kid turned the dial on the television.
Yes.
Supposed to be on 3, he turned it to 6.
It was done very quickly, and the guy said not to touch anything. So we have a what's the word? A ne'er-do-well among us, someone who's going to push buttons.
Well, he'll learn not to touch anything, because that could throw them off a million years, right? I mean,
yeah, but that's my point. When the guy who made the time machine says to not touch the time machine, it's probably for the best that you listen. You know, obey, because he made it. He knows like all of this is precise. I'm moving in precision. Any imprecision could lead to disaster.
Yeah.
A time machine is like, I don't know how many times more dangerous than a rocket ship is a time machine.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're in a rocket cockpit, you're not going to be flipping switches and messing with your suit unless you want to have a disaster. So why would you do it in a time machine? It's like, you did that great. That's wonderful. There needs to be that character that pushes the button that makes a problem. Yeah. You know,
yes. Without that, they would have gone to Mount St. Helens and come back. But because he turned the dial, we'll find out.
Man,
the way I write
great.
Stories, the way I like to write stories, like the same with the dinosaur in the garden. I just write that it's happened. I don't need to explain. Just roll with it, and hopefully the reader will say, "Yeah, guy finding a dinosaur in his garden eating his roses. Yeah, I sure." You know, same here. Yeah, we just made a time machine. We put it in the tool shed over here. You know, that's microwaves and gyroscopes and coat hangers, and the kid's like, I don't see any mechanism to make time travel, but it's there. You know, so.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about writing your own time travel story. You can make your own paradigm. Is it a hot tub, a water, an air balloon, a DeLorean? Is it a Klingon ship circling around, slingshotting around the sun or whatever that was? So time travel's got a bunch of things you could do to build your own paradigm. And because it's. And you wrote that without an outline, huh?
I just came up with the title, yes, and I sat down and wrote it.
Well, we're gonna see next week what you end up doing with that, because that's fantastic, man. Really.
Yeah. So of course, nobody just sits down and writes a story and said I'm done. I wrote it to the end, and I said like, okay, I said, what do I have? I went back and I tweak, fix a few words, add a
Yeah.
sentence here and there,
Yep.
concepts. But yeah, it's maybe we could do a whole show on that. Just
Redrafts. Yeah. Well, again,
how or just how ideas come out to our heads, or just you know, I mean,
yeah,
Emily
yeah,
came from a
sure.
dream, so
Yeah. Well, 2 weeks from now, maybe we'll have a book craft show. We'll see. Um,
there.
this has been JWC Livestream. This is what is the stories at a glance, but we're splitting up a story, a time travel story that Tom's got, because time travel stories are awesome and they're not easy to write. Um, Especially the more sophisticated, the more intricate they get, the crazier it can be. It's worse than writing a mystery, some people say. But that was great. Tune in next week for the next read to finish that story. And while you're tuning in, head over to joeswritersclub.com, joeswriters.club. Go to our social media for JWC. That's Joe's Writers Club social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And most importantly, head over to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and share with anyone who you think would benefit from the content, because we are trying to help people become different writers. Because you're responsible for becoming a better writer by putting the work in, but you may pick up some tricks here or there that'll help, and they make all the difference. And that's what it's all about, or what it's been all about lately. Tom, what are you plugging?
I have two short story collections on Amazon. Dwellers in the Shadows, and the second one is It Still Out There? Collections of creepy stories. I designed them sort of to give you a little heebie-jeebies before you go to bed. So I have a nonfiction work called "So You Want to Be a Writer." It's a beginning guide to figuring out what kind of writer you'd like to be. Uh, Equipment you could use, inspirations, places to go. How it's a fun read. It's short, and I have my Vella Kindle Vella novel of Thieves, Dragons, and O'Hara at 47 episodes at the moment, and probably about closer to 500 episodes, I'm guessing, by the time it's done. So
Yeah, I mean, check it out, folks. Tom Tiernan over here, Thomas Tiernan. Anything with the Shirella, like check out the Vela. The Shirella character and the world of Verema is very, very fascinating. So you won't be disappointed. And head over to Amazon and check out Nedhog Chronicles: Crusade of Shadows by Richard Andrew Olkus. It's a paranormal fiction book about a hybrid. She's not an abductee; she's an abductor, and we follow her life through some major changes in that book. So check it out. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you again real soon, folks. Stay creative, all right?